Welcome to Resilient Waters, Healing in the 10,000 Lakes. I'm Amy. Let's get connected. I am delighted to introduce to you today Dr. Kelsey Maleski. Dr. Kelsey works at CALM, the Clinic for Attention, Learning, and Memory. She is a PsyD in counseling psychology from St. Mary's University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, and a master's degree in counseling and psychological services. Her undergraduate degree was in psychology with minors in both American Sign Language and biology. She's a certified parent coach trained in parent-child interaction therapy and DC 0 to 5 training. She is currently working on getting licensed as a psychologist. Her areas of clinical focus are early childhood therapy and therapeutic neurocognitive assessments. She likes to specialize in child and adolescent autism and ADHD evaluations. More recently, she has found a passion in parent coaching, supporting parents who have children with behavioral and emotional dysregulation. Additionally, she evaluates clients of all ages and presentations at CALM, and has found an interest in working with adult women struggling with inattention and focus symptoms who may have been masking symptoms throughout their youth. Hi, welcome to Resilient Waters. Thank you so much, Dr. Maleski, for joining me today.
Hello, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to chat and talk about mental health today.
I know. I was so thrilled when I got a hold of CALM and so many of you wanted to get information out there. It's been a wonderful journey working with you in the past and now being able to do this podcast with you. So thanks for your time.
Of course. Yeah, we love outreach and we love connecting with the community. So when you reached out, we were like, how much do you want? And it sounds like we all decided we wanted to connect with you. And so, yeah, we're excited to hear each other's podcast too. So I don't know what the others are talking about. So I'm excited to hear theirs as well.
Oh, it's been wonderful so far. I can't wait to get them all out for everyone. So let's get into a little bit about your background. So how did you come to your clinical focus?
Great question. I think this is a question that I think about a lot because it was definitely not a straight path.
Right.
I definitely have gone down different avenues and different areas of interest. So I mean, if I think back to when I first started school after high school, I was pre-med and I was like going to be a medical doctor and all these things. And I started working in a hospital and I really loved the like psych patients that we were getting. And I was so intrigued by them. And then on kind of a whim, I applied for grad school in a psych department and I got in and it's kind of been full force since then. I got a master's degree, went straight into a doctoral program in counseling psychology. And through this whole journey, I've always had a passion for kids and families. I think that is the biggest passion I've had throughout my whole life, no matter what I was doing, nannying, babysitting, early childhood interests. So I would say my main clinical focus is working with kids and families. I have DC 0 to 5 training, so I can work with really, really little kids all the way through. I would say right now my oldest client is in their early 20s. But I think my favorite area is really just like under 10 and just learning about them and understanding them. And I also have a side passion, I think, of parenting. I became a parent in 2020. And I think since then, I've just been like, there's not great information out there readily available. I think people become a parent and they're like, I'll just figure this out along the way. And they get input and advice and the internet is wild with information. So
Right.
since becoming a parent myself, that has been a huge passion is getting that knowledge out there, getting that education out there. Really, when parents come to us and they're like, oh, I just don't know what to do. I love that question. Like, I want to just dive head first with them and try to figure out what's going on and how can we help and how can we kind of reframe children's behaviors and parenting solutions so that it's not just like, oh, this is a bad kid or, this is a bad parent, but really like, how do we work as a system? As I've loved being able to do that. And I would say my last clinical focus is assessments. Here at CALM, we do therapeutic neurocognitive assessments, and that is a huge passion of mine too. I love that it's tangible. I love that it's data driven. I love that I come out of it learning so much about how a person's brain works and functions, and giving them that knowledge and that power to know themselves better. And sometimes it comes with a diagnosis, and other times it just comes with really wonderful treatment plan recommendations. But no matter what, they come to us and they come out with more information. And I feel like information is power. So I love being able to provide that to clients and to their families.
It's such a hopeful work that you do. I love that because, I've worked with families probably since I started in this field. And it's rewarding and it's challenging, and there's so much misinformation out there. And, there is no one book.
No.
There is no one solution. Because there is no one kid that fits everything. And so I love the passion that you clearly have. And I saw that before I met you. I saw that in the work that you do, the assessments that you guys give for other providers and for clients are so thorough.
Thank you.
It's so helpful. So I see that come through, and that's why I wanted to reach out to you guys to do this podcast so that people can hear that and know that that is available. That you're not just going to say, here's this one book that gives you all the answers and it should just work.
It doesn't work. I mean, no. I'm in this field. I have 2 kids and I still don't have it all sorted out. Like, that's my favorite tagline when people come to like, well, how do you parent? I'm like, I'm still figuring it out too. Like, I have a degree, I have education, I help other parents, but my kids are unique and individual, and I'm still figuring it out. And I think that's the best book we can have, is that I don't know book and help me book, right? Like, asking for help. When clients come in, I'm like, you are so brave to be here today. Like, you on your bravest face, and I'm so proud of you. And this is such a vulnerable thing. And I'm glad that I get to share that with you, and that we get to work together to really figure out what's going on. Because asking for help is hard. And every day I get to help people who are asking for help. And I think that's the coolest job, like you said.
It is. It's that community building. It's making sure we're not isolating as parents or as kids, because that never is helpful, right? And that just makes symptoms worse, and it gets harder. So it's so nice. And that assessment piece where you're really going back to fact of neurology, what's happening in the body, what's happening in the brain. So empowering for kids and adults.
Absolutely. Yes.
I love all of those things. Okay. So I think we could talk about all of these facts all day long.
Yes.
And I know it's so helpful, but so you talked a little bit about the clientele that you work with most. Do you want to talk a little bit about the different types of diagnoses that you might see most often, or people are coming in to say, hey, I want to know about this?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say, so I think Calm started out mostly getting clients coming in for attention, attention, focus, distractibility. But I think the really cool thing is, although that might be like the number one presentation, we have so many complicated cases that come through here that it's like, yes, that might be your number one symptom, but there's all these other factors. There's trauma history, there's medical diagnoses, there's family mental health history. So I think primarily we see a lot of ADHD. I personally see a lot of autism presentation questions. But I would say coming out of our evaluations, we get so many different diagnoses. I would say ADHD, obviously, autism, but we get a lot of OCD presentations. We get a lot of anxiety, depression symptoms that we're seeing. Trauma, I think, is a really big one that gets misdiagnosed. So being able to talk to a person and really acknowledge their story and really say, like, yes, you're having a lot of, attention difficulties or distractibility, but at the core of it is this story that you need to tell someday and to process and to work through in your own time. And naming that for some clients is life-changing because, they go through their whole lives thinking, well, there's just something wrong with me or my brain's not working. But really it's a situation, or it's a bad life event, or, childhood trauma, or in vivo trauma, in pregnancy trauma. There's so many different things and factors that are out of our control when it comes to trauma. And so I think that's a big one that I've been seeing a lot more of lately, is like people thinking, oh, it's ADHD, when actually there's a really big trauma focus that is coming into play as well.
Absolutely. You're hitting on my passion right now, majorly. That's how I got informed about your clinic, is because it is very hard sometimes to get assessments done that are trauma informed and trauma sensitive, because not a lot of people get asked those questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And so when I hear of a clinic who is very careful about asking about those things and taking the time to really get to know the person, their story, what's happening, and being able to tease out neurologically a diagnosis of maybe ADHD versus trauma and or both, and can acknowledge that, I think that's game changing for clients to be able to be acknowledged in that way.
Yeah.
So
I 100% agree. And I do think it's missed a lot. And then I've worked with a lot of clients who it feels invalidating, because they just feel like, oh, well, I have to brush this part of me aside because someone told me I have ADHD, but my meds aren't helping and this intervention's not helping.
right.
And really, I mean, I think our clinic makes a really big focus on, we need to treat trauma and then come back. And then we can figure out more. And then we can give you more ideas. And then we can help you. Because if there's underlying trauma, it's really, really hard for us to find the right interventions for all these other factors that are going on.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, okay, this is something I could talk about all day, because it is so often, I work with the trauma. I do the EMDR therapy and different modalities for maybe dissociation, things like that associated with trauma. And then the attention stuff doesn't always get remedied, or the emotion dysregulation. And so then we go, maybe there's more to this, because there isn't often, it's both. And it's really hard. I don't know if you've seen this in your office, to find a client who has ADHD and doesn't have developmental trauma, because ADHD or even ASD can have isolating factors in adolescence. And so it's often, I see a lot of both, or a question of it. Could it be both?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when we get those cases where it's like, oh man, it could really be both, and end up diagnosing both, we talk to the client and we're like, okay, this is the treatment recommendations, and this is the path that we think, number one priority, number two priority, number three, because really, unless, like I said, we treat that underlying trauma or significant stressors in that person's life, the rest it's not as easy to like work through and to process. Right. So I think you're absolutely right. It's like almost everybody has some sort of significant life event or some sort of stressor. And it's really deciphering like what treatment plan and what path is going to be the most successful for that person.
Right. And working with clinics like yours that really take an approach from a neurological standpoint, a developmental standpoint, really is helpful. And also taking time to tease out those things is very different. And I'm not saying that other clinicians or clinics haven't been doing great jobs, because I think they do. I think that the model of how to do it is not always the easiest in our field. It doesn't always set us up as clinicians to successfully do this. So I don't want to say that, other clinicians aren't good. It's just, this is kind of a model that is really helpful. So I appreciate you and Calm for being able to provide this for people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I give all my credit to my supervisor and my mentor, Dr. Johnson, who owns Calm and who's run this clinic for the last, I don't even know how many years, but this has been his model. It's a very much therapeutic assessment. It's not just, here's the test, here's your diagnosis, see you later. It's how do we get to know this person? How do we get to know their system and their systems and take into consideration all of their story? And so he has really laid that groundwork for Calm, and I love that we're a teaching clinic and that we get to pass this on. I mean, I was a student here and now I'm back as a clinician. And so it's a really cool system and approach that Dr. Johnson has made for students to learn our approach, so then it can, spread and it can go to other clinics. And, I've worked at other places, and so I can bring my approach to other places, and our students can too. And so my hope is that it spreads, and it's not just an us thing, but we would love it for like all clinics to have a similar approach and concepts, so that all of our clients and patients are really getting a full evaluation and a full assessment of everything that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, for those who are listening, like, this is kind of what to expect, especially when, if you call up Calm and you want to get in an assessment. That's kind of how it should feel and look, is take time to answer the questions and to understand how this works. So maybe we should get into a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Do people need referrals when they contact Calm? How does that all work for you?
Great question. Nobody that I know of has ever needed a referral. I think that we are always open to accepting clients. I know that we are always, I think our wait list is pretty short compared to a lot of clinics in the Twin Cities and, in Minnesota in general, because we have our students and because we have psychometrists working here. And not just like, our students are fantastic. Like, you're not getting lesser of an evaluation if you see a student for the actual testing versus one of us clinicians, because we're hands-on and we're training and we're teaching them everything that we know and working hand in hand with them. And so we do not require referrals. I know that sometimes, different times of the year, there's sometimes a wait list at our clinic. Yep. I would say the busiest times of our year are summer. We get so many kids coming in the summertime, right before school starts, especially like, help, we need this help before school starts. I would say that's like our busiest time. Springtime sometimes can be busy for us, and sometimes there's a wait list in the spring, but for the most part, I think we're really open to assessment clients. On the therapy side, it's a little bit more limited, I would say, as far as like openings and availability. We don't require referrals for therapy, but we only have a few providers that do therapy here. And so sometimes schedules are limited. But we're looking to expand our therapy side of things because we know that's a need in the community. And so we do have a couple students who are doing therapy for us. And so we're just always growing and always expanding.
I love that. Yeah, it is very difficult. And this is kind of across the board, I think, for most places, to find that there might be a wait list, or it might be a few weeks or a month to get in, especially for therapy. Can you tell me a little bit? Because I know people can go on the website and take a look at kind of the process too. I know you guys are great about spelling it out, of what assessment looks like, how long it takes, those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we get phone calls or email inquiries, they're usually talking to Claire or Mercy. Those are our wonderful administrative assistants. They are the ones that set up all of our appointments. So they'll be like first contact. What they do is they get a client on one of the clinicians or the provider's schedule for an intake. We do all of our intakes virtually, so over the computer. And that's about a 60 to 90 minute question, get to know each other, learn history, background. We do have quite in-depth paperwork that we have clients fill out ahead of time. So all of their information is usually there. And so the intake is really about diving deeper, right? So I always try to review the intake before I have an appointment with a client, so that I can say, I really want to dive into this area, or I'm really curious about this. And it gives them an opportunity to ask us questions and get to know us as well, because we'll be the provider they're working with. It also gives us wonderful opportunities to find out if this is a good fit. I would say, I'm throwing a number out there, but probably 90% of our clients, it's a good fit. And this is the right place to be. They came to us because, they know what we do. But there's probably a percent that we're like, you know what, this is just maybe not the best fit. And it could be that they're looking for, a specific diagnosis that we just don't specialize in. It could be that they don't have the right insurance. Sometimes that's a bummer and that doesn't always work out. It could be that they need something ASAP. And then we can't always get them in as soon as they would like. But I would say almost everybody that comes to our intakes, it's like, this is a really good fit. And, we can provide those services for them. After that, the process really is to get them scheduled and to come in for the testing. We usually do 2 or 3 days of testing. It just depends on the person's presentation and kind of what their questions are and how long things take. I work with a lot of kids, and so sometimes things take longer because kids like breaks or their brains only can last so long. And so we definitely try to be adaptable and work with them on how much time they need to come in for the actual assessments. And at the end of the whole process, we have a follow-up session where we talk about all the results and diagnosing if there's diagnoses. And then we at our clinic like to spend a good amount of time talking about recommendations,
Right.
and interventions and getting them support and things that are really going to help them be successful with the knowledge that we gained from their evaluation.
There's so many things that you said within that process that as another provider, I think, oh, that's such a wonderful protective factor for clients because these assessments can be overwhelming. And so being able to take your time is such a blessing. And I understand too when people are like, but I just need this information right away. And so it's that delicate balance of, we can only do so much so fast, but also it's for your protection of helping your system, especially if maybe there is some trauma in the background. Or I don't know, I think too about assessments and how much that feels like testing, like our school. And for kids, that might be really overwhelming. So I love how intentional you guys are about taking your time and thinking about overall mental health, what is helpful for people within a process like this. Because you want the information, and it's also difficult to do all of this in one day, right?
Absolutely.
Because I've heard of that as well, where it's, we're doing this all at once, and then here's a bunch of information that's really overwhelming, and good luck.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah. I mean, I know that there are some clinics that do that really, really successfully, right? Like a 1-day assessment or a 1-day evaluation. And for some clients, that's really what's needed. And that's really what's going to benefit them. I would say most of our clients that are coming to us, it's just so complicated and they have many complex presentations or they've had previous evaluations. And so trying to get it all done in 1 day, we have found just isn't our best work, and it isn't something that's going to benefit the client to the best of their knowledge and everything. And so, I think from start to finish, if I had to pinpoint, the process can take up to 3 months, from intake to getting the report. And that's just because, we want to take our time and we want to make sure that we're very thorough. And so for some people that's just not a good time frame. And so that's okay. But for a lot of our clients, they really at the end of it are like, no, that was a good process. Like, I'm really glad that we took our time to get to the root of everything and to understand. And so I would say more than not, our clients are very okay with the amount of time that it takes to get through the evaluation.
Yeah, I appreciate it as another provider. I think it's a good model to have. And taking your time. I also want to point out for those who maybe haven't heard any of the other podcasts about Calm, but I want to point out that as a provider or a client afterwards, your recommendations, whether or not they meet a diagnosis, you still give recommendations on treatment goals based off of the symptoms that the client comes in saying is disruptive to their life. And that can be very different than other types of assessments or maybe services out there. So I wanted to highlight that piece that you guys do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I think it's a strength of our clinic, and I think it's a strength of how we do and approach our assessments is everybody walks away with knowledge and information about themselves and things that are going to help them be successful. I do think it's rare that a client walks away without a diagnosis, because most people that come to us have had previous diagnoses,
Right.
but it does happen. And, I think that's probably people's main concern when they come to our clinic is like, am I going to walk away empty-handed? I'm just nervous that I'm going to come away without answers. And I usually address that with, no matter what happens, no matter what comes from our evaluation, diagnosis, not diagnosis, what you were looking for, what you weren't, we are going to learn so much about your brain, and so much about your behaviors and your functioning. And we will provide you with a good list of resources, of recommendations, of interventions, even if it's just lifestyle things, right? Like, we have so many recommendations that's just about day to day. Whether it's supplements to think about, or diet, or sleep, or those types of things where it's like, it's not even you need to go find somebody to help you with these things. It's just like, what can I do for myself day to day that's going to enhance my life and make my life better? And so I think no matter what, if people come to us, they come away with something. And more times than not, I think they're very satisfied with what we're giving them. And I think we give good recommendations for whoever their team is that they're working on too.
Yeah.
I really try, because I work with kids, I try to put things in there for, home life, peer interactions, school stuff, because kids are in so many different settings and they're in so many different interactions. So I try to kind of highlight all those different areas as well.
As a clinician, I have to do that shout out again that yes, I've seen some of the work that you guys do, worked with you in the past. And yeah, those recommendations are wonderful.
Thank you.
And they do, they translate into other areas of life and in other services. So it's a good thing. And, I understand that, diagnosis is about ticking a box a lot of times. And that doesn't mean that people don't tick multiple things, but maybe not all of the things. And so it can be really helpful to always know that you're going to get some sort of recommendation or help with whatever it is that is difficult for you. So that's great.
Thanks.
I wanted to highlight too, we talked a little bit, or you mentioned a little bit about the insurance piece, that sometimes that is a part of it. And I know that's always a question clients have. So do you want to talk about what does payment look like, insurance, those kinds of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say this is not like my wheelhouse. So I had to do some research of my own to figure out what exactly we offer. Because like I said, our admin staff is amazing. Like, we would not run smooth without them. So I really love them and care for them. So Calm is in network with Blue Cross, including Blue Plus and Blue Advantage through the Minnesota Healthcare Program. We also do some Medicare clients. We have out-of-network clients, if they choose to pay out of pocket for services, can submit receipts to their insurance, and sometimes they can get reimbursed even if they're not in our network. I would say we have a fair amount of clients who do pay out of pocket. If there's a pay out of pocket client, it's $3,200. And that includes everything. So when I say everything, we have 2 additional testing that we offer that aren't part of the insurance package. So if clients are coming to us and they have that Blue Cross insurance, the insurance doesn't cover educational testing. And then the insurance doesn't cover our QEEG testing. And our QEEG is a brain scan, not in the scan sense where you're like in a big machine, but it's more reading the brain waves. I kind of explain it to people as like kind of an EKG type system for your brain. There's the little electrodes and it gets connected to a computer, but insurance unfortunately doesn't cover those 2. But the benefit if you do pay out of pocket is those are included in that price. So I always like to mention that.
Very helpful for those who are thinking about those. I'll throw out there too, like HSA, FSA, those kinds of things help a lot. And submitting those receipts as out-of-network costs, I have heard, is very useful. And, you can always talk to your insurance about that ahead of time too.
Yes.
And I will say too, your front office staff is phenomenal.
Oh,
They're
I agree.
so responsive. They are so kind and helpful, and all the information is up front, so there are no surprises.
Yes.
So I very much appreciate that.
Thank you. I do too. They're wonderful.
Right. How do people find you? Where are you located? All those things.
Yeah, great question. So, I would say the best resource is our website. Calm. Let me look it up. I don't want to say it wrong. It's calm.us. It's not .com. So I think that's the one thing to keep in mind. But if you just type in Calm Mental Health Clinic, Calm, the Clinic for Attention, Learning, and Memory, all those things will pop up. And our website is, we're working always to update it and always to keep it relevant, but has the most information. Finding me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm working on getting a Psychology Today profile. And I think just Google is always a really great resource to find mental health professionals.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking for just general assessments, typing in like neurocognitive assessment, neuropsych assessment, mental health assessment, those are great ways to find us as well if you're forget our name or can't find us. But I would say those are probably the best places. Although I will say a lot of our clients come to us word of mouth.
Yeah.
And hear a lot of clients like, oh, my teacher's cousin told me about you, or it's like very down the line sometimes. And I'm like, that's so cool. I love that. I love that our name is out there. I know you and I talked a little bit about how we're trying to connect more with the community. We've been reaching out to, or schools have been reaching out to us and vice versa to try to talk to staff.
Yeah.
So, I think we're trying to get our name out there, and doing podcasts is also a really cool way for us to get our names out there too.
Absolutely. I will always link all of the information in these podcasts below. So if you are looking for the website, just look down below in summary of this podcast, and I will link all the websites. I can even put your LinkedIn link on there as well, and just all that information will be provided here. I will say your website is great. I have literally sat down and just read it out loud to people.
Yeah.
Who are looking for this and said, this is exactly all the information that you'll need. And then just reaching out through email too, or calling the office. Yep. Like I said, your front office is great.
Thanks. Yeah. I will say we're, us and myself and the providers are throwing around the idea of like a blog post or doing some sort of podcast ourselves where it's like more assessment based. So maybe look for those things in the future. But yeah, we're always trying to get our name out there. We do a lot of presentations. I guess I should maybe mention that too. We've, presented at Minnesota Psych Association, MPA. Like I said, my boss, Dr. Johnson, he is big into MACMA, which is more mental health broad, but it's for children specifically. Yeah. So we're always at the MACMA convention up in Duluth. So those are other cool ways that you can see us and find us and hear our information. Because we're always coming up with new presentations to present to the community, but also to other mental health professionals.
I love that. So if there's any, schools listening and you want to have someone come in and talk more about mental health assessments, things like that, providers, this would be a great way to. I think that would be really fun to see. I've been hearing through you guys a lot more about this conference you do in Duluth. And what I thought was really fun, I want to put in this podcast as well. I know I said it in the last one. Is that I didn't know this, but parents can go and hear about these as well and get support and resources. Yes. So it's not just for providers, which I think is great.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's really cool part about MACMA is that it is open to, parents, general public. It is a lot of, I think, more social workers or school therapists and psychologists. But yes, I've seen lots of parents or, care team people at those events, and they find them so helpful because I think that's a conference where the information we're presenting is not so data driven, and it's not really heavy in research language. So it's really attainable and digestible for kind of a mainstreamed, not psychologist, not mental health professional, but general population will definitely benefit from it as well.
That's awesome. I'll go ahead and link that as well down below.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in it. I want to talk, and these are great resources. So I think I'm going to go into that same question about, are there other resources that you like to share with people that you find really helpful?
Yeah, I thought about this question. And I think, and maybe this is kind of a silly resource, but it's one I go to a lot. So I feel like that's a good one. But I love searching Instagram for really good professionals who are putting out really good information. And so like when I work with clients and families and even some teens sometimes, I'm like, yes, the internet has its flaws. Yes, Instagram has this like doom scrolling tendency.
Yeah.
But if we're making our feed educational, if we're making what we're looking at important and something that is actually going to benefit us, that's great. That's great. I think that's awesome.
It is.
And so that's kind of what came to my mind is like, I look on the internet all the time for really resourceful, educated, researched people who are providing this type of information because we're already scrolling. And so get good information while we're kind of relaxing. I think that's really awesome. And so some of the ones that I was thinking about that I follow and that I talk to families about, I wanted to just mention, and I can share them with you too if you want to, like I said, if you like,
I'll link them all.
But I have found a couple just to be so helpful. Dr. Amin is one that is on Instagram. He is a psychologist, or is he a psychiatrist? Mental health professional. I can't recall off the top of my head, but he is a person who talks a lot about neurodivergent, ADHD research, and we actually have a lot of his self-report measures that we use in our evaluations. And he has an Instagram account, and I love following it because it's him, and it's him talking about his knowledge and information. And I'm like, this is so resourceful and so helpful. And it's just like a quick 1-minute clip, and I just learned so much about it. So I love him. There's another one called Big Little Feelings. This would be more of a parent resource because they talk. It's two therapists, and they talk a lot about parenting strategies and how to help our kiddos with their big feelings. So I love them. A couple others I love. There's one person named Dr. Kelsey, and she's also parenting. I would say a lot of mine are parenting. Yeah. That's just kind of what the life that I'm in, but also what my passion is right now. And so I think that's a really great resource that I think we shy away from the internet because we're like, oh, I don't know if this is good information or not. But my goal is to find people who have background in psychology, in mental health, even medical health, and they're spreading information that is actually helpful. And it's helpful in a way that's like, I would actually apply this to my own family, or I would tell a client about this. And seeing some of the scenarios, because they like play it out, they role play things. And so I think sometimes seeing how to do an intervention or how to do deep breathing is a game changer, because if we're just told, oh, practice your breathing or do these things, we don't always know what it looks like. Exactly. And so finding the right people is the key.
I think that's absolutely right. It's a wonderful resource when we can use it in an educated way.
Yeah.
And so I tell clients too, sometimes even the funny videos that you like about cats can be really neurologically helpful.
Absolutely.
In grounding and finding that calm state of mind. And that's not a bad thing, right? Yeah. Like the doom scrolling feels different. Notice those things. Yeah. And so when we find things that are helpful and are positive and reinforce the way that we want our brain to function or understand better of how our functioning is, great, keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm gonna definitely post all of those things, and I just want to shout out to the whole. If you do check out the website and you look at you do have some blog posts already up there. The Barnum effect is fascinating to read about around this whole piece of social media and how it can be helpful and not helpful at all. So if you want to know more about that, take a look at the website. It's a great article.
Yes, I agree. I think that is a really useful perspective. Like, it's not all or nothing. We don't have to think it's all bad or all good. There is good and bad and medium stuff on the internet. And like you said, it's just getting the right information in front of you to help better your functioning rather than the doom scrolling that we all feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Right. Exactly. Oh, so one last fun question out there. So if you could provide services for a fictional character, who would it be? I love this question.
I love it too. I had to think long and hard about it because I was like, I want to have such a good answer. And okay, this is what I came up with. And it was inspired by one of my kids' favorite movies. Ralph Breaks the Internet. It's like the sex sequel to Wreck-It Ralph.
Yep.
And my brain went to, oh my goodness, how fun would it be to have a group therapy session with the Disney princesses? And I was like, oh, that would just be like, it's not really like my wheelhouse, right? I'm like I don't do group therapy usually, but I was like, that could be so fun to just like dive into a group therapy session with all those princesses and then just really figure out what's going on and like, where are their moms and where are their dads and why are they talking to these animals? And it's like, I was like, this could be so fun.
That would be so fun. Would you do assessments on every single character?
Oh, yes.
Who do you think would be the most interesting as far as the assessment and finding what the diagnosis could be?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like, I didn't think about this one. I kind of wonder if Sleeping Beauty might be an interesting one.
Oh.
Just because, like, she falls asleep. She knows this curse is coming to her and, like, what that would do to her mental health. And then she, like, is asleep for this extended period of time. And then she wakes up and there's this person just kissing her. And, like, what is she supposed to do with this now? But then she just goes and marries him. That to me is the most interesting and unique plot line where I'm like, I think we need some help here.
I agree. Like, there's a lot of trauma happening here. And also that it's the shutdown. It's the lethargic autonomic system kicking in. Like, there is no way I'm escaping this trauma. So I just need to either could be a fawn response or is it a full on fall? Like dissociative, I am going to distance and do whatever you're doing, and then I'm just going to live through this. As much as I can. Oh.
Yeah. And let's get this girl some resources and interventions to help her.
Right. Well, and then there's the whole fact that she grew up thinking she was Briar Rose? Was the name that she was given, and she's not. She's Aurora, apparently. And so we've got this whole
identity crisis going on. Yeah, absolutely.
That poor girl. And I mean, they're all like 16 to 19, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So. But I was like, that would be the most interesting room to be sitting in and like doing the evaluations for them. And
well, I loved how Wreck-It Ralph, the second one, definitely just threw it all out there like, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And we should all be questioning.
Yeah. Yeah. The character
is like, here.
Do you need help? Should I get help?
Right.
Like, yes, we should get help.
Absolutely. I think we need some additional support and, cut that isolation down for sure.
Yes. Yeah, that's another like trend that they all have isolation at different parts, and like it's all these women, like young girls, and it's like, what is this doing to their mental health? Is where my brain goes.
Yeah. How has this changed their developing brain?
Yes, absolutely.
100%. Yeah. As clinicians, I think that would be fascinating. And then also to see, because I really do think that with the right help and support, they would thrive. I mean, they're
Absolutely.
clearly very resourceful
Yes,
young women.
and they're very adventurous and like willing to go out and do these like bold things. Like I think about like a Rapunzel. Like she just like goes on this wild adventure and she's never been out, and like how brave of her. It's like they have really good, like you said, resources and qualities. And so just getting them like that extra help and extra support and be like, actually, no, these are some things that shouldn't have happened to you. And here's how we can like pave a new path forward and rewrite your story. And yeah, I think they all would really benefit from that.
I think so too. Fascinating. I love it. That
What
makes
a
so
good
much
question.
sense. Yeah. What a fun question.
It is.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything else that you want to throw out before I let you get back to your regular scheduled day?
Well, it has been so fun talking with you today. I don't have anything else other than I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm so glad I got to share some of that with you today and with your listeners, and I hope that our community hears us and gets to get the services that they need. And I look forward to connecting with you more in the future and working collaboratively on different things.
Sounds great. And absolutely, if there are more additional things that you guys are doing, maybe we'll have a follow-up podcast after this, because it's been really fun chatting with you, and I'm so glad to share this.
Oh, good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. All right, guys, this is the legal stuff, the disclaimer. The podcast is intended for educational purposes only. The information provided is not a substitute for professional therapeutic advice or counseling. Always consult with a qualified mental health professional for any personal concerns or issues. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guest and do not represent the views of any affiliated institution or organization. Listener discretion is advised.